This is the CBS Evening News. Bob Schieffer reporting. Good evening. There was a major breakthrough tonight on the Central American peace plan. Nicaragua's President Daniel Ortega has now agreed to hold direct ceasefire talks with the Contra rebels and to lift a 6-year state of emergency. No mention of conditions. The agreement came at the end of a stormy summit meeting of Central American presidents in Costa Rica. All those attending pledged to renew their efforts to implement the so-called Arias peace plan. Juan Vasquez reports from the summit meeting in San Jose.
After a day and a half of tough closed-door negotiations that reportedly included shouting matches, the government of Nicaragua is apparently prepared to make major concessions. According to a communique issued by the Nicaraguans, the government would lift the state of emergency immediately, hold direct talks with the Contras in Costa Rica, and implement an amnesty law that would affect thousands of the regime's opponents. What is not known is what the Sandinistas have won in return. What President Daniel Ortega has insisted upon is an extension of the peace deadline until mid-February. But U.S. allies have opposed the extension adamantly.
Fulfillment, compliance is absolutely indispensable, and that we cannot accept any more delays and more excuses.
The extension is desired by the Sandinistas because it would buy valuable time. The U.S. Congress is scheduled to vote on more funds for the Contras early in February, and the compliance of Nicaragua with a peace agreement could help to kill the funding. Nicaragua's economy is in a state of near collapse because all of its meager resources are devoted to the war effort.
The Sandinistas are interested in bringing the conflict to an end so that they can get about the business of rebuilding their economy. That's why they signed the Central American Peace Accord in the first place.
Late this afternoon, Cardinal Miguel Obando y Bravo of Nicaragua agreed to leave for Costa Rica at once to serve as a mediator for the talks between Nicaragua and the Contras if all the parties agree. Juan Vasquez, CBS News, San Jose.
The odds man is out. Jimmy the Greek Snyder talked himself out of his job with CBS Sports today after some controversial remarks yesterday about black athletes. Robert Shackney has that.
CBS said it fired longtime sports commentator Jimmy the Greek because of his remarks yesterday to a Washington TV reporter about blacks taking over pro football. Remarks that the network said in no way reflect the views of CBS Sports. Jimmy the Greek's longtime fellow commentators were as dismayed as the network.
We were all shocked, I guess, is really the mild way to put it. Shocked.
I don't think there was any choice at all. I think Jimmy the Greek fired himself. I don't think the network let him go. You just can't defend statements like that.
These were some of the comments that got Jimmy Snyder in trouble.
And he's bred to be the better athlete because this goes back all the way to the Civil War, when during the slave trading, the slave owner would breed his big black to his big woman so that he could have a big black kid. See? Now, I mean, that's where it all started.
Snyder's comments lit up CBS telephones around the country. There were hundreds of calls, most sharply critical. One longtime sports critic said Snyder's comments reflect a pattern of racism in sports and television.
Mr. Snyder is not the problem. The problem is the fact that he felt so comfortable making the statements that he made, and what that tends to indicate is that the circles that he moves in the higher echelons of sport and the media felt quite comfortable with those kinds of sentiments.
Scholars who've studied American slavery say Snyder is repeating myths, not history.
Normally, the slaveholders let their slaves pair off naturally, and there's simply no truth to the breeding story. Certainly, the historical explanation he offered is nonsense.
Snyder issued a brief written statement after he was fired, saying he was consulting a lawyer and adding, "I am truly sorry for my remarks, and once again I offer my heartfelt apology to all I may have offended." Most people connected with football were shocked by the events, but few of them were really surprised. The teams were integrated years ago, but old attitudes are hard to change. Robert Shackney, CBS News, Washington.
And still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, new calls for Arizona's governor to call it quits. And later, chickens can fly. Charles Osgood reports on a cure for the fright stuff.
Come, my little apprentice, let's eat. Ah, Peter, do we ever cover steak with ketchup?
No, Father, but it's hamburger.
Ah, but hamburger is steak. It's chopped steak. So we use
A1 steak sauce.
Right. And it's A1's herbs and spices that make hamburgers taste like
Steak burgers.
Don't cover it. Discover it with A1.
And we'll save the ketchup for the fries.
Good.
Examine for a moment the Oldsmobile Delta 88 sedan. Anti-lock braking and supplemental inflatable restraints are available. Independent rear suspension, front-wheel drive, all in one of the few automobiles that can still comfortably carry a family-size family. And then some. The Oldsmobile Delta 88, the family car that didn't forget the family.
Arizona's Republican Senator John McCain and 3 of the state's 4 Republican congressmen called today on Arizona's Governor Meekum to resign for the good of the state. Meekum was recently indicted on 6 counts ranging from fraud to perjury. No comment yet from Meekum. In the great battle of the Republican income tax returns, Republican candidate Bob Dole today took up the challenge laid down by rival George Bush this week. Dole released 21 years' worth of returns, which showed, among other things, that he and his wife had a combined income of more than $500,000 last year, mostly from various investments. In Iowa, Dole has been stressing he's just folks, a poor boy who came up the hard way in contrast to Bush, who comes from old Eastern money. But if Bush is richer, Dole is gaining on him. Today's returns show that Dole and his wife's income last year topped Bush's by $200,000. All this as the Republican candidates held one of the campaign season's liveliest debates yet in New Hampshire today. And Phil Jones has our report.
Dole was already in New Hampshire today before his financial records were released, and he used this first Republican debate in the state to pressure Vice President Bush to make more financial disclosures.
George asked me to disclose my tax returns. Well, I've done that today, George, not just for 10 years, but for 21. So I called you and raised you. And I hope that we can have the rest of your time. You did exactly the right thing.
It was another debate with the vice president finding himself under attack on domestic and foreign affairs issues.
You in the media have a fascination with Iran that I don't think the American people are interested in that much.
But some of the candidates were very interested in the Reagan-Bush-Iranian policy.
There are no moderate Iranians. There are plenty of people in Iran who have got to be much more reasonable than Khomeini. That's just factually untrue.
The Republicans also argued today over how to deal with the budget deficit.
The Republican Party's beginning to sound like the Herbert Hoover Party.
I wouldn't do what George Bush did, though. He says the 87 budget's his model. That cuts student loans $1.2 billion.
Did I say the 87 budget was my model? Is that in the...
It's in the Liberty Magazine interview.
I was supposed to throw the spears today. What's happened here?
In fact, at one point today, there were so many Republican spears flying that the debate moderator wondered out loud.
Jack keeps talking about one word. John, how can we expect you people to run a government? I mean...
Today's debate was mostly a duel between Bush and Dole. The other candidates watched and frequently laughed, hoping that this combative campaign strategy will backfire and damage the front runners in the end. Phil Jones, CBS News, Hanover, New Hampshire.
DuPont, by the way, pulled out of the biggest contest in the South today, the Texas primary. He wasn't expected to be a factor there, but nonetheless said he had discovered some of the names that had been gathered for a petition to get him on the ballot had been forged. So he said he fired those responsible and is withdrawing from the Texas contest. The developments on the Republican side all but overshadowed the Democrats who held their own debate in Iowa last night. Bruce Morton has that story.
The Democrats went back to shaking hands and making speeches today, knowing that none of them blundered in last night's debate and that most of them emphasized the themes they had wanted to hit.
Al, it's good to see you back. You know, I thought they might start putting your picture on milk cartons.
Albert Gore took some ribbing for his decision to ignore the Iowa caucuses, but he scored some debating points, too. One against Babbitt, a long shot whose ideas, including a national sales tax, are now being noticed but not always admired.
I really don't want the impression to be given that someone who doesn't agree with a regressive 5% national sales tax is somehow not honest.
Jesse Jackson drew perhaps the loudest applause responding to a question on abortion.
I am just as concerned, however, about those who are absolutely obsessed with the fetus from conception to 9 months. They have no commitment to the baby from birth to death. And that becomes a big challenge.
Michael Dukakis scored, telling Republican questioner Governor James Thompson why he wouldn't send Massachusetts National Guard troops to Central America.
They're down there engaged in a failed and illegal policy in Central America. That's why I said I wouldn't send my guard down there, and that's why Bruce Babbitt said he wouldn't send his guard.
Thank you, Governor. And Gary Hart?
I believe there are new directions, and I believe there are new approaches, and that's why I am in this race for president, to present those ideas.
He said he came back to the race because of his ideas, but they and he did not dominate the talk last night. In fact, Hart seemed a pale figure on the platform, little noticed. And at the end, when the music played and the debaters joked and shook hands, he often stood alone. Bruce Morton, CBS News, Des Moines.
We're now 3 weeks away from the caucuses in Iowa and 4 weeks from that first primary in New Hampshire. So how is this campaign shaping up? One of the candidates had some thoughts on that last night.
You see, I think the American people are ready for some truth and honesty.
They generally are, but spend some time in Iowa and you understand that Babbitt really may be on to something. As the candidates crisscross Iowa this year, they're finding voters just as interested in straight talk and honesty as they are in the so-called issues. Listen to homemaker and part-time nurse Gail Johnson.
I'd like someone that I feel is warm, that I would be comfortable with, I could talk to if I had the opportunity, that I think his honesty would come through in his policies and how he's going to deal with them. I also want someone that's strong enough to handle a crisis.
There's really nothing new about that. Pollsters say of all the votes that Americans cast, the vote for president is the one based most on gut feeling. And more than ever, campaign managers say that's the case this year. Is the candidate trustworthy? A person who can be counted on to do the right thing in a crisis.
Clearly there's this feeling of who they feel comfortable with, who they think would be the best president to go to the White House, who they trust.
Absence of any overriding issue so far is added to the re-emphasis on character. And whether he admits it or not, so is Gary Hart's re-entry into the race.
But don't you think the manner in which you've conducted yourself personally has been somewhat irresponsible? No. Do we need an irresponsible president who takes unnecessary chances?
I'm not irresponsible.
In any close race, the candidates know that trust may be the deciding factor. That's one reason George Bush has been trying so hard to put down the notion he hasn't come clean on the Iran-Contra mess. A campaign that began last week when he lit into the editor of Iowa's biggest newspaper.
And your paper today had that question raised as if I hadn't answered it. And I resent it, frankly. And I think that you owe me now, you owe it to me. You owe it to me to ask me the question that I haven't answered.
Whatever the issue, over and over this year, voters are saying what they always say, that it is character, a feeling that a candidate can or cannot be trusted, that really matters in the end.
In terms of my own reaction to a candidate, I have to feel some sort of good vibes or something with a candidate, and I think intuition has a lot to do with the way I would look at a candidate.
Gary Hart said in Iowa last night that Americans weren't looking for perfection, and maybe he's right, but they have always looked kindly on integrity, and as far as we can tell, they still do.
It took 2,000 years, but a revolutionary discovery is changing the way men think about coloring their gray hair. It's called Just for Men, from the leader in men's hair coloring. Simply apply Just for Men, and in 5 minutes, shampoo out. Your gray is blended away, leaving your natural-looking color. 5 minutes. Here, look at me. Just for Men leaves your hair looking healthy and fuller, and it won't fade or wash out. Just for Men, in the men's hair care section.
Winter allergies and colds. The sneezing and congestion can make you feel miserable. For relief, discover Benadryl Decongestant, combining Benadryl with the decongestant found in the leading cold medication, Benadryl Decongestant.
We love visiting America.
Hot chili, barbecued ribs, corn fritters.
But it's jolly good you have Kaopectate.
Nothing relieves diarrhea and calms cramps faster than Kaopectate tablet formula.
Kaopectate,
the diarrhea specialist.
Whirlpool and I have spent the last 75 years becoming laundry experts, but now they're making it easy for everybody. Look at these fancy options, temperatures and cycles to help you take expert care of most any fabric, even special things. Who knows, with all those great options, even Grandpa might do a good job on the laundry. Nah. We're making your world a little easier. Whirlpool.
In Mozambique, rebel fighters said today they killed 78 soldiers and disrupted rail traffic to the nation's capital during recent attacks. These are the latest developments in Mozambique's long civil war, a war that has produced starvation to compare with Ethiopia's. Martha Teichner reports.
This is Mozambique, not Ethiopia. This is Africa's other famine, the one that has to compete with Ethiopia for the attention and generosity of donors tired of hunger stories. Starvation in Mozambique is as heartrending, as tragic, as extensive as it is in Ethiopia, but not so well publicized. Something CARE, working with the Mozambican government, is struggling to change.
Again.
So last month, CARE flew in rock music promoter Bob Geldof to see for himself. Geldof has made a second career out of helping Ethiopia's starving people. The stark fact is that more than 1 million people would die in Mozambique without emergency food.
It's a very, very, very grim situation. In fact, I would say it's the most frightening place that I've been in Africa.
This week, American journalists, including CBS News, were invited in to hear Mozambique's President Joaquim Chissano appeal for help.
We will make our efforts in order to get also some more aid to enhance the protection of the population.
War, not weather, has caused this famine, a 12-year civil war between Mozambique's Marxist government and right-wing rebels that has made it a logistical nightmare to get aid to the people who need it. Just before Christmas, the rebels threatened to attack Red Cross food drops to government strongholds reachable only by air. So the Red Cross had to stop flying. Airlifts are now random at best. The rebels have begun ambushing convoys. In 1987, CARE lost 11 aid trucks. 27 others were damaged. More than 200 tons of food was stolen or destroyed in rebel raids.
It's hard to separate the starvation from the war issue. They're so closely linked. What is so obvious in my travels thus far is that given a little bit of peace, things could turn around so quickly here.
But because there is no peace in sight, CARE's plea for this ravaged country is that much more poignant. Martha Teichner, CBS News, Mozambique.
There was a quiet protest today in Haiti against a general election set for tomorrow. The army-organized elections will come 6 weeks after the first attempt to elect a president ended in bloodshed. Victoria Corderi has that story.
Pre-election strike cleared the streets of Port-au-Prince. Opposition leaders and candidates who are boycotting tomorrow's election called for the shutdown and are urging people to stay home.
The elections are going to be a rigged operation, and if they take place, only a hand-picked candidate of the army will be elected.
The candidate favored by the military government of General Henri Namfi is Philippe Auguste. He is expected to get a lot of help from the army in his quest for votes. Word has spread quickly that commanders in the countryside will search for people and force them to cast ballots. This country priest says armed military men are shooting innocent peasants who don't want to vote. The church is canceling services so the military cannot round up parishioners and take them to the polls. Tension is everywhere.
Many killing in the street, many dying by the policemen, That's why we're having problem in Haiti.
The opposition blames the Reagan administration for standing by idly and allowing General Namfi to consolidate power after the November election massacre. Some Haitian American leaders in the U.S. are advocating armed revolt. This Miami man says he sent arms to his relatives in Haiti. He says Haitians living throughout the U.S. and Canada have been instructed to do the same.
Well, we're doing everything we can to supply them with whatever they want. It means sending arms, sending bullets, sending whatever we can to help the Haitian people.
And on the eve of the election, the Army has intensified car searches for weapons. Despite the controls, there are fears of a violent backlash from candidates who were supporters of the Duvalier regime and who are barred from running. The election that was supposed to be the bridge to democracy in this embattled country is now being regarded as just another dead end. Victoria Quideri, CBS News, Port-au-Prince.
A friend told me about Metamucil. It worked, but it was so gritty.
Now there's great-tasting Citracel. Let's compare. Both have fiber for regularity, but Metamucil is gritty, so it won't all go through the strainer. Citracel mixes completely. Its special fiber pours right through. And Citracel's every bit as effective as Metamucil. Citracel. Great taste, no grit.
Remember when a drive-in was $1, a hot dog was a dime, and cars were under $10,000?
Stop that, Jimmy!
Now the movie's $6. A hot dog's $1.75. And cars, well, Subaru still has an entire line of cars for under $10,000.
Stop that, Jimmy!
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Country is paying tribute this weekend to Martin Luther King Jr. in York, South Carolina today. There was a parade of honor of the slain civil rights leader who would have been 59 years old. The third official national observance of King's birthday will be on Monday. Civil rights leaders charge that King's dream of racial equality has not been fulfilled in Forsyth County, Georgia. 1 year after white supremacists broke up a Brotherhood march there, civil rights demonstrators returned today. Peter Van Sant was there.
Ain't gonna let no turn me around.
Controversial civil rights activist Hosea Williams and more than 180 of his followers returned to all-white Forsyth County, Georgia today, saying not enough progress has been made to bring blacks into the community.
So we are reviving the movement in the South to rid it of its apartheid-like government.
It was a year ago when 75 marchers were attacked by whites in Forsyth County, which became a symbol of racial hatred. 1 week later, more than 20,000 people marched back into Forsyth in the largest civil rights demonstration of the 80s. Today's march was peaceful, with dozens of police escorting the demonstrators. News media representatives far outnumbered the few residents who watched from their front yards.
I don't want my kids going to school with them, especially with blacks and whites mixing.
Both white supremacists and Hosea Williams are just making a mockery of all of our county.
This Brotherhood march is not only opposed by many Forsyth County residents, but also by some veterans of the civil rights movement who declined to take part.
People from Forsyth County work in Atlanta every day, and they work alongside black people, and they don't have any problems. So I don't know what the big fuss is about.
Hosea Williams is demanding that 10% of Forsyth County government jobs eventually be filled with blacks. And despite creating division within the civil rights movement, Williams says he'll march again if his demands are not met. Peter Van Sant, CBS News, Forsyth County, Georgia.
Let's hook up our phones, computers, messaging, the works through here.
We can't. Our phone systems down south are 3 years older than the new one here. Same make, different technology.
You bought us a $2 million phone system that doesn't work with anything else?
Finally, there's an extra-strength antacid that doesn't taste chalky. Introducing extra-strength Maalox Whip. Extra-strength relief and smooth, creamy taste. New extra-strength Maalox Whip. Extra-strength whipped in, chalky taste wiped out.
When your coffee's hearty enough to cut through the morning chill, and it tastes your way, it's necessarily Nescafe.
Great coffee blends to change the way. That's necessarily Nescafe. Whatever happened to real food? You know the kind that just tastes real good. Don't want a dinner I can't pronounce. Whatever happened to real food? You know the kind that just tastes real good. Give me a steak and I won't be blue. I got a taste for
food for real people.
Good news for people who are afraid to fly. There is help on the way, and Charles Osgood reports.
The good news is we have delightful weather and we'll be landing at JFK.
The bad news is that many more Americans are struggling with terror over flying this year in the wake of air disasters, near misses, and reports of shoddy plane maintenance.
We're seeing far more people who are calling, wanting help to overcome their fear, wanting more information about it than I've ever seen before.
But Ross and other authorities add that fewer panicky flyers than in previous years are actually turning up for professional help.
People sit home and watch the news stories on television, read the newspapers and say, look, I'm not crazy. There are air accidents. Why should I fly?
Some airplane phobics have such strong professional or personal motives, they force themselves to fly and suffer.
It's that feeling of going crazy, sitting on the plane. You think, gee, I don't want to have the feeling that people look at me and say, gee whiz, what's wrong with this fellow over there?
I don't know that I'm afraid of crashing and dying. I think I might be afraid of crashing and living. Being on the ground in a wreck.
They're among an estimated 25 million or more Americans with strong fear of flying. But many are helped by organizations that calm anxieties with the help of airline experts, relaxation techniques, and statistics emphasizing that flying is far safer than cars or houses.
For most people, we can pretty much cure the fear of flying in about 6 to 8 weeks.
How many people here, is this your first flight? And don't the co-pilot raise his hand?
In New York the other night, American Airlines volunteers took a Fly Without Fear group on a training flight between two airports. As usual, the scariest time was before takeoff.
I'm very nervous, and I wish that I could just leave.
I want to do it. With all my heart, I want to do it.
As he opens those valves and let that pressure in, you feel a little bit in your ears. Uh-oh, we're off the ground.
You hardly feel like you're moving.
Yeah. She's fine when she gets up in the air.
45 minutes later, it was all over but the cheering.
Let's go again.
They know, of course, other flights may not be cream puffs, and they're advised to bring books, knitting, and conversational openings for those long waits. But they look forward to a fuller future.
I'm not going to stay in Brooklyn for the rest of my life. I do want to go to other places.
Most of them are now planning future trips into the not-so-wild blue yonder. Charles Osgood, CBS News, New York.
And that's the news. Susan Spencer will be here tomorrow, and later tonight, remember to watch West 57th Street. I'm Bob Schieffer, CBS News in New York. Good night.
Heartburn again.
Yeah.
You gonna sit there and suffer? You gonna take something?
What do you have?
Riopan Plus 2. It's double strength.
I hope it works fast.
How fast can you get to the medicine cabinet?
In lab tests, Riopan Plus 2 starts neutralizing acid in 10 seconds, and 1 teaspoon neutralizes more acid than 2 teaspoons of regular Maalox or Mylanta. That's twice as strong.
You look better.
You want to go out for a banana split?
You kidding?
Riopan Plus 2, the fast antacid.
Saying goodbye to a car you've owned for years is a lot like saying goodbye to an old friend. But if it's a Mercedes-Benz, there's always this cheering fact to consider. Over the years, Mercedes-Benz automobiles as a line have retained a higher percentage of their original value than any other make of car sold in America. And that can make the sorrow of parting a little sweeter.
No one ever called me a mama's boy. But when you're stationed out in Germany, 15 months till you go home, and you're getting up every morning in the pitch dark and running yourself ragged till it gets dark again, well, you don't have to be a mama's boy to just love the sound of your mama's voice.
Only AT&T keeps you this close anywhere in the world. AT&T International Long Distance.
On our next Capital Edition, the strange story of how little Hagerstown, Maryland got a